I'm going to go into this thing a little bit deeper about how real estate investors are leaving millions of dollars on the table. And we're going to show them how not to do that. But we're not going to use a dime of the rental income, not a dime of the rental income that has been earmarked for reinvesting. We're not touching it. Okay. So here's what happened with this particular client. He says, Don, we have 2 mortgages on this properties, and I'm paying about $14,000 a month of mortgages and cash flowing about $41,000 on this property. All right. But Don, I read your book. I see how much interest I'm paying, but I still don't want to use the money that I've earmarked for reinvesting. I do not want to pay down on these mortgages. I said, okay. So he told me he has $6,000 coming out of the rents that's coming in, and he's putting that into a reserve fund. Okay. I said, okay, let's use that. He actually disclosed to me that he has about $100,000 in the reserve fund. Now, our program, which is an artificially intelligent computer program, lets our clients know exactly what to do and when, just like GPS for your car. This is GPS for your money. All right. Now, I'm giving some examples here of what you could do. I'm not telling you exactly what this particular client did. I'm just showing you some of the numbers of what could happen if you knew how an amortization schedule actually worked. So that money he has in the bank is making 0.1%. Okay. He has it in a savings account, about $100,000 in a savings account. Now he says, what kind of money is this guy making that he can keep $100,000 in a savings account that's only making 0.1%? A lot. All right. So that cash he keeps on hand so that he could do repairs or whatever on the properties. Okay. Improvements. So here's what we're looking at. Let's put that back on the screen. We have one of the properties. The mortgage is $1,488,906.65. Okay. The payment is $8,704. We just went over the fact that the bank wants him to pay $1,122,000 in interest on this loan. So when you take a look at $1,122,000, that when you take a look at the percentage of the principal, oh, it's not 5%. Total interest paid as a percentage of principal is 75% of the money's borrowed. When we pointed that out, he says, listen, I got to do something about that. So when I showed him this, okay, first part, interest cancellation. How do we cancel interest? So when we see the first payment, the first and the second payment of $2,500 going to principal, $6,000 going to interest, here's what you need to understand. When you prepay, when you give the bank money before it's due, all of that money goes to principal and it saves you interest. You just need to know how much. Here's an example. I make a payment on, let's say, January. Okay. I made a payment in January and I can see February's principal payment of $2,510.64. What if this real estate investor, out of the $100,000 he has in his savings account, took $2,510.64, took that out of his savings account and paid it ahead of time, paid it early to this mortgage? Do you realize that $2,500 he has sitting in the bank account, making 0.1% saves him $6,193.36 in interest he'll never pay, and it eliminates one line from his amortization schedule. That's the basics of interest cancellation. So I then asked him if he's taking about $6,000 every month out of the rents that he's putting consistently. I mean, when you're in this kind of business, you have percentages, you have a formula, you have a system that you're following, and he's putting that money away consistently every single month. Okay. So I showed him the amortization schedule and asked him this question. After 1 year on paying on this mortgage, sir, you're going to pay it down by $30,699.86. Folks, if you're looking at cumulative principal here, that's the third column. In 1 year, you pay this loan down by $30,699.86. That's it. All right. Making the monthly payments because before he was just paying the interest as the cost of doing business. So he was just making the payments because, listen, he's pulling in 41 grand and he's paying out 14. Simple math, making a lot of money. All right. So, but here's how much interest he's going to pay in the first year: $73,748.14. If you think that 73 grand is too much to pay in interest to pay a loan down by 30,000, I need you to put some number nines in the chat. Can you put a number 9 in the chat? Oh my gosh. Put a number 9 in the chat if you think $73,000 is way too much money to pay your loan down by $30,000 in the first year. 1 year, you're going to pay $73,000 in interest. And that's why you're cash flowing big time money. You're still making money. Okay. So here's what we're talking about, folks. Here's what I asked him. If I prepay $2,500. Oh, I see the number 9s. The number 9s are flowing in here, Flame. They're coming in like gangbusters, Flame. I got this from Flame because he says when you put the number 9 in there, it actually not only answers the question, but it pumps more energy into the room. It gets me more excited. Okay. So here's what we're talking about, folks. We're paying this thing down. If I looked at the cumulative principal for 1 year, it's $30,699.86. I said, since you're going to pay that anyway, sir, could you borrow $30,000 from yourself out of that reserve fund? That still leaves you about 70 grand in the fund. Could you borrow $30,000 from yourself and prepay it to this mortgage? He says, well, yeah. I said, did you realize if we subtract that money from what you owe, you're paid down to line 12 on your amortization schedule? You're paid down to the exact same place you would be if you made your monthly payments for the next 12 months. You'd be paid down to the same place if you just paid the $30,699.86 all at one time instead of over 12 monthly installments. Is everybody following me right about now? Are you getting this? All right. So if he did that, guess what happens? He skips all the interest payments between line 2 and line 12. Here's a real estate investor who said, Don, I do not want to take my money that I'm investing in other properties to pay this down. I said, you don't have to. Let's take this money over here that's sitting in the bank making practically no money. 1/10 of 1%. Let's say if we could borrow 30 grand out of there, $30,699.86, and apply it to this mortgage and pay it down to line 12 on the amortization schedule in just 1 month. If you did that this month, guess what? Your next month's payment would be on line 13 of your amortization schedule. Line 13, you knock off a whole year and your interest savings amount to exactly, here you go, folks. I hope you're clipping this, $67,661.37 he just saved in interest he no longer has to pay. Is that exciting to you? That he borrowed money. And listen, this isn't even the good part. I'm not even at the good part yet. You think that's good? Here's the best part. I said, you just borrowed that money from yourself, sir. I said, now, how long would it take you to pay yourself back out of the monies that you're naturally putting in there from the rents every month? He says, well, if I borrow $30,000 and I'm putting $6,000 in a month, it takes me about 5 months. Is that about right, folks? Is that about right? 5 months? He could put that money back? And here's my next question. Could you do it again? Could you take that $30,000 out again and apply it to this mortgage? Real estate investors, are you getting what I'm talking about? Are you picking up what I'm laying down here? Ladies and gentlemen, what we're just talking about, borrowing money from himself, putting it on the mortgage, saving $67,000 in interest.
But Don has some valuable information that can contribute to the quality of a person's life. And it only costs you a few dollars. It's his book. Why not get that?
I'm going to go through the P.I.L.L method myself with some of my investment properties. So I'm going to link up with Don, and then I'm going to sit down with him, show him my investment portfolio, and see how I can eliminate interest.